Okay, so there's the parts swapped over on here, and then these are actually really cool because if you could point to that ridge there, where the where the housing seals.
Oh, here.
Yeah. So it's got this cool little ridge that runs around there, like so, and then of course filter housing sits down like that, and then there's a nice little O-ring seal all the way around. So essentially all of the air is forced to go through this pre-cleaner. Although, well, you can't see it because underneath the filter, but there is a like a water drain on the bottom there. But yeah, so there's that deal. And then with this newer style, it's really quite nice because the air intake is on the side with the fuel tank there, and like if you look flush down the side of the engine, it's completely smooth, where with the older style Cyclone that I have on my 200 and 160, the pre-cleaner itself sits off to the side there. But yeah, so these are the parts that you have to change. Is the carburetor, the intake elbow, which on the original setup the intake elbow is a two-piece, like so, or on the one that we just put on there it's a single piece. But carburetor, intake elbow, the air cleaner lid, and then the air filter itself changes. And I have, you can see, this is what it has now, is the round filter versus the oval filter. And I just noticed that, I had said that this is an aftermarket. Well, this right here says Stins, and I'm assuming that that's their part number. And hopefully you can get appreciation for how much crap that is on the filter just in 70 hours. And two, also, hopefully this comes across here, that on this aftermarket filter, the piece of foam is maybe 1/4 inch thick, something like that. And I don't really want to take this one out of the bag because it's all sealed, but the Honda foam pre-filter is much thicker. And then the wish I had like a little scale or something, but this filter is about half the weight of the original Honda filter. So yeah, so yeah, we will, when we're back here working on this machine in the future, then we'll take a look at it again and see how it's doing.
And I guess before we go, did you want to talk about at all what's different about that carburetor, like basically?
Yeah, so I talked about it in the other videos about the GX 200 and 160, but the reason that we have to change the carburetor is that the original carburetor does not compensate for intake restriction. So if, say, the air filter starts to plug, it'll cause this carburetor to run rich in the original setup. Talking about the original parts here. Intake restriction will cause the carburetor to run rich. Well, with the pre-cleaner on there, for the pre-cleaner to function, it has to create a little bit of intake restriction. And so the new carburetor will compensate for intake restriction to a certain point. It's not like you can have 10 pounds of dirt in there and it'll run just fine or whatever. But yeah, this one here will compensate for a little bit of restriction because is there a better way to word that? For the pre-cleaner to work, the energy has to come from somewhere. And the energy is the differential pressure of on the outside here in the atmosphere and inside here, because the pre-cleaner itself is the pre-cleaner itself is the barrier that creates the pressure differential. But the pressure differential is where the energy comes from for the pre-cleaner to work. I feel like that's confusing. I don't feel like I nailed it.
We can nail it on another go.
I like the way you think. But anyway, so like I said, I got part numbers for this and everything, and I'll show you the part numbers later. And yeah, as we come back in the future, we'll take a look at this and see how it's doing.